Hey folks, I just want to tell you we had a fantastic Sunday this last Sunday, and so I just with give some introduction anyway. We had an incredible Sunday, and we had several people getting baptized, and then we heard from one of our own shared their testimony how they met God, and so I just want to introduce that just to let you know that this is not our regular service, but it's an exciting aspect of Easter Sunday. So sit back and enjoy it, and we look forward to connecting with you.
That's, I think, a real treat and a half. As we were worshiping, Jackson came up to me and said that he had something that he would like to share with the church. Now, whenever we give our nursery, not nursery, but our kids ministry a break, and being that many people are away because of Easter and that kind of stuff, is we didn't have any kids ministry that was going on. We had nursery, but we had kids ministry, and whenever that happens, our leaders always put out pieces of paper and a cardboard and things they can color and draw, and just to keep kids a little bit occupied during the service. And I want to be honest with you. When I seen that, I thought, it's too bad. I mean, and you just kind of, one of those non-thankful days, right? One of those days you're not thankful. And so what was incredible was, as we were worshiping, Jackson came up to me and said, I would like to share something. And lo and behold, he had written something down on that clipboard and a piece of paper that I thought, I'm disappointed. And I want you to listen to what he wrote. Jackson, you want to come and you want to share what you wrote there, okay? Let's do that. Awesome.
God gives us food, we give praise. God gives hope, we give love. God gave us salvation in churches, but most of all, God gives life.
Most gives life. I don't know if you can see that, but it's all fairly small, but the word life is huge. Isn't that awesome? Let's give him a hand. Thanks so much, Jackson, for blessing us. One of the things that I'm excited about in service is how God meets people. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's incredible. And I want to introduce you to someone this morning that is incredible and awesome himself. And most of you know who he is, Brian. And Brian has got quite a story of how God picked him up out of a road that he was traveling on. And God met him and gave him eternal life. And so, Brian, why don't you come up and share with us how you met Jesus and how important that life is for you. Come on up here. Make sure you're up here so everybody can see you. I love this guy. I get to work out with him every once in a while in the gym, and I show him up every time. And so I just wanted to say that just to clear if any misconceptions are with me around him. So.
Well, I don't know how I'm supposed to follow Jackson's time up here. That was really good.
That was awesome.
But for those of you that don't know me, I'm Brian Molstead. I'm married to the beautiful lady in the pink hair there. And she's where my testimony really starts and it ends. So we met 9 years ago. It'll be next month that we met 9 years ago. And I was 19, she was 24. It seems like 100 years ago, but we met, and 4 months later I found out I was going to be a dad. And I mean, I was only 19 years old. I was an apprentice mechanic making like $15 an hour and terrified for my life because I couldn't take care of myself, let alone another child. But that's kind of where my addiction to work began. We started saving for a house, and I knew that I had to provide for my new wife and my soon-to-be baby. So I started working all the overtime I could, and it built, and we got a house, and I was driving a tiny little car back then, a little Cobalt, and I couldn't afford anything else. But as long as my wife and new baby had everything they needed, I was happy. So we started out like that, and once we got Marlo's born, we started looking for the future, and I knew there was no future where I was, so I went to the oil patch, and I took a fairly large salary increase to do that. And what happened was I started out, and I was still an apprentice, and in the first month and a half that I worked in the oil patch, I was working 170 hours every 2 weeks, and I'd made in the first month and a half what I'd made in the last half the year at the previous job I was at. And so money kind of took over. So we worked there for about 3 years, and I worked my tail off, and I was really proud of myself because when you work lots, you make lots of money. When you make lots of money, you feel successful. And when you feel successful, you feel above where you actually are. And it's hard to humble yourself when you take that kind of pride in yourself. But 3 years later, I was offered a job up in Regina, and we were offered to move. And I always disliked Estevan. I hated Estevan. I blamed Estevan for everything that was wrong on earth. If there was a bad weather, if there was rain or a bad wind, it was Estevan's fault. I hated it here. And I remember getting the phone call from Bud Jones. He's got a really thick southern accent, just like Tom there, you know. Brian, we could use you up in Regina, you know. It was awesome. And it was awesome to hear. He's from Oklahoma. He's the Northern Region Maintenance Manager. And to get a personal phone call from somebody like that with a job offer to say, we want you to come run our maintenance program in Regina. And I thought, I was 6'6" and 280 pounds of chiseled granite. Like, I felt good. And so there was no way I was going to turn that down. And after I got the call, I was coming into town from, I think I was out of Wascata that day. And I was coming into town, and I drove straight to Lindsay's shop, and I told her, I said, I just got called from Bud Jones and Boyne Reach. I said, they're coming down here to interview me tomorrow. We're going to have lunch, and they're offering me the job as maintenance foreman in Regina. And I said, I know how you feel about leaving Estevan. You never want to move. And I said, I'm going. And I know you don't want to leave. I'd love you to come with me, but I'm moving either way. And that was her options: leave or be left. You know. And looking back, it sounds terrible when now you know it does not roll off the tongue nice. But thankfully, she did decide to move. But her stipulation was that we buy a house that didn't need any work. We flipped a house here in Estevan, our first home. We did everything to it, inside and out. So her only stipulation was, you buy me a house that we don't have to work on. And I thought, fair enough, right? Seems like a mighty good deal. And boy, did we ever. We bought this big $500,000 house out of Regina Beach. It was 2,800 square foot bungalow that overlooked the lake, and it was just absolutely gorgeous. And it took us a while to convince a bank to even lend us the money, right? It was far more than we ever needed, but that was what she wanted, and that's what I wanted. And when you buy stuff like that, it makes you feel more successful, right? That's what it gives you, a false sense of security when you own these nice things and people see you with nice things. Everybody thinks you're successful, and so that was kind of part of the addiction, and that's where things get out of hand. And that's exactly what I wrote down, and that's when things got out of hand. So once we got up there, we went up there, and there was only me and I think 2 other mechanics at that time, and we were working 12, 14, 16, 20-hour days. I'd get called at all hours of the night. I talked on the phone all day, every day, 7 days a week for, I would say, the first year and a half that we were up there, until I think the second Christmas we spent up there, that we took Christmas off and went to Calgary. But I worked every single day, and I don't remember how much money I made. It was the fact that people needed me to answer them. People needed me, and I was the guy to go to for answers, right? So we built ourselves up to 10 mechanics, and I felt more successful. Like, I was on top of the world. I was going to be a millionaire, and everybody was going to know my name, and that's kind of the path that I see myself on, and I was proud of it. But one thing that I wasn't proud of now that I look back on is when I came home from work, I'd be up and gone at 5 in the morning, come home at 7, the kids are in jammies, and Lindsay's got supper made on the table, and I'd scarf down 2 mouthfuls, and the phone would ring, and I'd talk on the phone until 10:30, and we'd go to sleep for an hour and a half, and the phone would ring, and I'd get up and I'd drive back to town to fix a truck, or I'd get up and I'd drive to Wainwright, Alberta for 3 days and not even tell her where I was. But it wasn't what was important to me at that time was not family, and it wasn't being humble, and it wasn't other people. It was just about my path. So then when things slowed down, they slowed down real drastically, as most people in Estevan have seen and have experienced. And the time slowed down. We lost the company truck and the company phone, and we were losing our overtime. We didn't have work and whatnot. And so they decided to close the doors at our facility in Regina. We were open essentially for 2 days less than 2 years is all we were open. And in that time, a lot of people moved their families to Regina. But, So anyways, they flew down into Regina, and they told us they were closing the doors. And allergic to something up here. And when they told us they were closing the facility, I had to lay off two of my best friends and a couple other guys. I got to keep 5 people for the next month and a half, so just so we could disassemble equipment, clean up, and then we were all done. I had a couple job offers to go to Algeria and Grand Prairie and Red Deer, but with the price of the oil, it was just too dangerous to transfer my family. Again, for the first time in 6 years, I'd finally thought about my family, and we decided to not move. So I took a job out at Esterhazy Potash, and I was done April 15th, and 2 weeks before that I knew I was going to be done, my little stepsister was killed in a car accident in Calgary. And I didn't think it affected me whatsoever, right? It was, my dad lost a stepdaughter, and we went out to see them, and when we came back, I came back to no job. When I came back to no job, the next week I moved away to Esterhazy. And then once I got there, started working 5 days on, 5 days off, and it was a really awesome shift. But I really appreciated the alone time. I liked being alone. It was peaceful, it was quiet. I missed my family, of course, I missed the kids anyways. But I did like being alone, it was awesome. And then I'd come back from my days off, we'd go fishing, there was no responsibilities, there was tons of time to relax. It was a wicked shift, but me and Lindsay would fight. Oh, we were toxic. It was just, we would fight all the time. And all she ever wanted was quality time, right? And we'll get to that, I guess. So anyways, we went alone, and I started to appreciate that quality time so much that when I came home from days off and we'd fight, the resentment that I held towards her, everything was now her fault. Estevan was off the hook. Everything was Lindsay's fault then, right? But so I decided it was best for everybody if I'd left abruptly and for good. So that's what I did. Lindsay moved back to Estevan, and my mom, God bless her, moved out of her house so that I could move to the farm out by Midale and have the kids on days off, rent-free and with no strings attached. So after I moved down to Midale, we had the beach house there, and that beach house was a little over $3,000 a month. We had a child support, I had rent in Esterhazy, fuel out there, groceries for me, groceries for the kids. At one point in time, my debt servicing ratio was at 165%. After everything that I valued, which was money-based, I lost it all, and then some. I went so broke. I started missing mortgage payments, loan payments, and it spiraled downhill from there. And it was a pretty dark time, and I thought I was happy. Yeah, I'm broke, but I'm happy. We can party, I don't have any responsibilities. I don't have a wife to answer to, all by myself. I thought it was awesome. I thought I was living the life. Little did I know. So 10 months went by, and me and Lindsay were both broke and single. I developed anxiety, and I started having panic attacks. I got daily phone calls from many banks. The kids were no longer wanted to come to the farm. Because as much as I tried to shield them from my problems, I'm sure I wore it on my sleeve daily. And I know it really took a toll on both of them. We were going through a company out of Saskatoon. It was called Fairway Divorce Solutions. It's a mediation company, and to me, it's the cheapest and easiest way to get divorced. If anybody ever has somebody get divorced, highly recommend it. It was delightful. And one of the reasons it was fast and cheap and moved along really well is because me and Lindsay, when we were divorced and separated, we got along better than we ever had. We were the happiest divorced couple you've ever met. We did really get along, we're good. But anyways, she couldn't afford it, so I scrounged up the $1,500 that I didn't have to get divorced, because I wanted divorce and I wanted a divorce now. But Lindsay had asked me at one time, I can't read my own writing, so if I'm stalling, it's not because I'm bawling my eyes out. Yeah, that's right. We were 2 months away from being officially divorced. But Lindsay had asked me one time if I was okay that she took the kids for a photo shoot when I was supposed to have them, and I said, absolutely, that sounds like a good time, right? More than welcome. So the day came that she came out to the farm a little bit early to take the kids in the house and get them ready. And then she asked, she says, well, do you want to tag along to Weyburn and come to the photo shoot? I'm like, no. I got stuff to do. I'm good. She's like, well, you may as well tag along. It's only going to be an hour. So I said, yeah, okay, well, tag along as long as it's only an hour. And this is the first time we had spent any time together at all the whole time we were separated. And I was not looking forward to it, but I wanted to see the kids get their pictures taken. So anyways, we visited all the way to Weyburn, seen the kids get their pictures taken. They were absolutely adorable, as they always are. And we visited the whole way back, and we got along swell. I said, well, do you want to come in for supper? She says, well, sure. I'm like, I never did learn to cook. I'm like, it's not going to be good. You can come in and eat it if you want. So she did. We had supper, and she stayed a little late that night. And then the next day, I just felt like there was something else there and that I needed to see her again. So we were going golfing, and she said yes. And I said, huh? She hates golfing. I mean, she hates golfing. She says, yeah, I'll come golfing with you. I'd love that. I don't know if you'd love it, but yeah, come along, right? So anyways, it didn't take long for me to realize that I had made a huge mistake. A couple days later, the $1,500 I paid to the divorce company was on Friday. Saturday, we went to Weyburn to get the kids' photo shoot done. The day before we hung out, we were getting divorced. We were 2 months away. It was all said and done. But I caved in and realized that I had made a huge mistake. A week or two after we started to mend things between us, I called the divorce company to get my money back because they hadn't done anything yet. It was just a retainer. And they said, well, we can give you half of it, right? We can give you half that back, but the other half is ours. And I says, well, whatever. I need it, right? I am broke. And why I didn't get the mail shipped down to Estevan where I was is beyond me. It doesn't make any sense to me now. But I was driving up to Regina Beach to get my mail, and I had to keep my mailbox there to keep insurance on the house that I wasn't living in. And that's honestly the truth about. We were so close to not being able to have insurance because that house sat there empty for months and months and months. So anyways, I called and they says, yeah, we can give you half that back. And I said, okay, well, ship it out right now. Well, we can't ship it out right now. It's some whatever logistical issues, and it'll be next week. And I says, okay, next week works. Next week, I drove all the way up to Regina Beach to get the mail, and it wasn't there. So I drove out to Esterhazy for work, and I go on days off back to Estevan. And then the next time, I go up to Regina Beach to get the mail before I go off for my week of work, and it wasn't there. And then finally, the third week, the bank called, and they needed money. And so I gave them the last of everything I had because I'd called the lady that I was dealing with, and they says, we have that check in the mail. It was there, should have been there 3 days ago. I says, perfect. Thank you very much. Called the bank back, gave them everything in my bank account. Drove up to Regina Beach, opened the mailbox, and nothing. Not even a Cabela's flyer. Nothing. It was empty. 5 days that thing sat there and not one thing got put in. And I was devastated. It rocked me. I didn't have enough money for food for the week, let alone getting back to Estevan at the end of my work week. I had nothing. So I left the Regina Beach and drove back to Regina, got out on the number one. It's just outside White City. I'm on the number one. I call Lindsay and I am devastated. I'm bawling. I have no idea what I'm going to eat. I have no idea how I'm going to get home. I have nothing. There's no way that I can live for 5 days on $0. She says, you just got to pray. You got to pray. You got to give it to God. You got to let go and let God. And I'm like, I don't understand what these words mean. Like I did. I was never a Christian. I wasn't a bad guy, but I was never a Christian by any means. We weren't raised as Christians. I was never informed about God. I was untaught. I had no idea. So anyways, I was bawling. She was talking to me about God and how I should pray, and I had no idea how to pray. What's up? Hey. If you got anything, I could use it. That's how I was trying to pray. And then all of a sudden, as I'm driving down the number one highway, there's a sign in the ditch. And it was like that big. Looked like the signs that MPs put out to vote in your yard, right? It was tiny. And looking back now, to me, it's the size of a drive-in theater screen, looking back. Because all it said was, trust in black, and then Jesus in red. Trust in Jesus. And that was it. That's the moment that every issue I'd ever had, every stress about finances, Every relationship that had ever been broken, everything I had ever done wrong, paused. It stopped on the highway. It was, looking back, it's an image of me in my truck going, because I had no idea what was happening. It stopped. It's just an image. It's just a memory that exists in my mind. Nobody else can see it, but it stopped. And I remember being so stunned at what was going on that it was like everything was brighter and smelled better, and I just went like this. And then I was back on the road traveling, and I didn't have one worry in the world. Nothing mattered. It was unbelievable. Every relationship problem that we'd ever had was mended. Everything that I'd ever resented was forgiven. It was an amazing experience. And I was not a Christian. To see me up here talking like this, if you told somebody that knew me from 2 years ago and prior that I'd be in front of a church talking about my relationship with God, they'd have thought your cheese slid off your cracker. Because this is going to go viral around my social life, let me tell you. And that's what happened. It was a sign in a ditch and a word from my wife that completely resurrected my life. From the darkest place that it had ever been into the most beautiful thing. And so to recap, so hold on, I got some figures here. I wrote up until just before the sign, and then I wrote insert experience here. Because it just can't even be written down. I think about it every single day, and I can't write it down. It's just something that comes right off the top of my heart. So at one point I was 165% debt servicing ratio. In just 3 years and 12 days, we'd lost north of $200,000. I was on the verge of declaring bankruptcy. I tried to declare bankruptcy a few times, and I couldn't pay them the retainer to Deloitte Financial. I missed 2 appointments, and then they said, well, what can you give us? And I'm like nothing. Like zero. What do you mean? And so anyways, I tried to declare bankruptcy, couldn't. Could have again, didn't. And we have never been happier. And that's basically all I got for you.
You're such a blessing because it just becomes real. And that's, I think, the point that I think we can get out of all this is it's just real. A relationship with Jesus is real. And it can take someone saying, why don't you just pray? I don't have a clue. You know what? God's not offended when we say, hey, if you got some, can you give me some? I'm not offended over stuff like that. Sometimes we can so over-religiousize it and make it so eloquent that he even gets confused.
And the first time that I did pray, and when I broke down after I seen that sign and everything had happened, I looked through my front windshield, still driving down the highway, and everything that had been wrong, I had so many things to ask for, and the only thing that I could spit out was, thank you so much for everything that you've given me. That was the only thing I could think, was to thank him for everything that I had and not everything that I'd lost. And that was the first time I'd ever prayed, was just thank you for so much stuff you've done in my life.
You've come from the old you to the new you, and the Bible calls that being born again.
Yes, sir.
Born again.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it awesome? Like, it's incredible that God loved us enough to meet us on our roads. Your road is Highway 1. You know, your place is somewhere else. Your experience is different. Your story is different. But the amazing thing, church, is all our stories have a common denominator: meeting Jesus. We've been talking, we've been celebrating, we've been worshiping here this morning about the resurrection, that he is not here, he's risen, all that aspect. And this is a testimony right here. We are a testimony of what the resurrection does. It takes a life that's been beat up and battered, thinking they were successful, having all that they ever dreamed of, all losing all that stuff. I remember when they moved into their house here in Estevan, and we were helping them, Elijah and I think there was one other person helping move furniture in, and we were downstairs, and he said, you know, if I would count how much money I've lost moving from one house to the next to this house, it would boggle your mind, and I am more happier now than I ever have been in my life. That matters nothing to me. And you know what, that's what happens when you live with peace. Your circumstances can turn upside down, and yet you're not moved, right? You're not moved. And you're a blessing to our church. It was great seeing you. All the baptisms were awesome. Again, baptism, all what baptism is a symbol of what's happened into your life. You were died, you were buried, and now you're resurrected to new life. Does that mean you're perfect? I don't know. I don't think you're perfect, are you?
I have a few flaws.
Maybe I should ask your wife, huh? My wife will just give a list right away. Like, without exception, it's like she's been waiting for the opportunity, and out it comes, right? Just because we have a relationship with Jesus doesn't mean we're perfect. Now, it doesn't mean that everything is necessarily going to go well with our life. But that peace and that knowing and God taking us on a journey and a walk with Him is incredible. And it's great to see. Great to see you and your family. I'm so glad you're part of our church. You just bless us as a church. You bless me as a person. I love seeing you in the gym, and Lord, I want to be like Him.
Thank you so much.